All right.
All right.
Let me. All right.
All right. All right. All right.
Never seen that movie.
I haven't either. I just know that it's Matthew McConaughey. So, hey, speaking of Matthew McConaughey, did you get the track worked on this week?
No, so I finally got my delay wrapped up. So that just, I was just headfirst in a sea of bucket brigades and companders and surface mount resistors and caps. So when you work on a circuit, time loses all meaning. So I started that on Monday. It's now Friday morning, and here we are.
Yeah, well, be a lot cooler if you did, man.
It could be. People are really getting at us in the comments, but
listen,
the emails we get are just so.
We are busy
hurtful
people, okay? Like, I've got coffee that I have to make, and Zach has, I don't know, Christmas lights to put up and stuff like that. So, we've yeah.
Don't do that anymore.
Well, do you ever really give it up? I mean, come on.
Oh, so little history of me. If you didn't know what I did before Carter, which was before Mythos, I've only had like 3 jobs in my entire life. I worked with my dad and we sold Christmas lights. Now, when I say we sold Christmas lights, I don't mean we sold like 50 strands a month. I'm talking like enough to light entire cities and 100-foot tall Christmas trees and like Christmas lights. So that consumed my life. So when Christmas shows up right after Halloween, I'm already sick of it. I love being around my family and the food and that sort of thing, but Christmas lights could never exist and not be okay.
Oh, well, there it is. So we don't have a track.
No.
Don't worry about it.
But Dipped in Tone episode 15.
Wow, I feel like that's a milestone of some sort.
Is it?
I don't know. But what is a milestone, we have, for the first time ever, the largest number of people in the Discord chat live. We got good crew.
Craig.
The gifts are flowing. Like,
man.
Wait, I was trying to think of that Pocahontas song. Now I'm thinking of Mulan,
That's
Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, see your real reflection.
Anyways, so we've already gone off the rails. And we're back. If you want to join in the Discord server, you guys know how to do it. Check out the Patreon link down below. You can join for just $2 a month. And eventually we will have merch coming at some point. Right?
Waiting on your guy now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say we were waiting on Zach, but then you're right. We're waiting on our merch guy. So never mind.
I emailed the files. They're out of my hands.
Okay, so merch will be coming soon. Zach, what's up with you this week? What's new?
Man, really, the delay. That's big. That's a big thing because we started the design process in January.
Mm-hmm.
And took a while to really manifest itself, and things this year just was a weird year. But I finally dialed in the circuit because you got to play it.
Yep.
And the mix control was a little off center. I really like, for a delay pedal, the mix when it's at noon to be pretty much 50-50. And it was not there, so I kind of recentered that. I reshaped the voicing so it's not super dark, but it still has a little bit of character to it. And man, I'm stoked on it. And John Snyder, the designer, he's experimental audio, incredible designer, genius level stuff, has wrapped the circuit board. So this weekend I'm going to order them, and hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be sending out things to people to check out in the magazines and stores, and then we'll drop it all at once. So, but what about you? What did you get into?
I have been working on my new video course. So it's a complete comprehensive course on the Nashville number system. So it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I figured I would knock it out before Christmas, and it'll probably be the last course that I do in this space. So I wanted to knock that out before we start, going through the whole process of moving and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, the number system is like probably the most important and useful piece of musical knowledge that I have, and it's one of the things. Gesundheit. It's one of the things that I use every single time I play with another human being or work with people. So basically, I decided to put a course together because the way I learned the number system was years of like little bits of information here and then little bits from here and like kind of compiling this sort of concept together. And so I decided to make a video course that is just from top to bottom. It starts at square one, literally like the major scale, and it goes all the way through the voice leading and natural number system and chord scales and all that kind of stuff, harmonizing major and minor scales, all that kind of stuff. Not gonna be crazy long, maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of instruction. But the idea is you take the course, and by the end you are fluent in the Nashville number system, and that's it.
It's one of those things that once you understand the mechanics of it, you're like, oh, that makes total sense.
Right. Yeah, it's so useful. It is so useful.
Yeah.
So,
but it does help to know like your circle of fifths and like, really basic theory stuff.
Yeah. So basically I shot everything. Oh, I bought a new mic this week for the production. Bought a shotgun mic, which I will tell you about a little bit later. And yeah, I knocked all the recording out in like 2 days. Tilly is editing all of it. There's 12 parts. And my friend Kevin Nolan, guitar player extraordinaire, the guitar player I tour with in Jesse's band, he is transcribing everything for me. So he's going to be doing all like the transcriptions and the charting and everything. So hopefully it will be available in the next 2 weeks or so. We're trying to get it out in time for Christmas. So you can buy the guitar player or musician in your life the gift of musical knowledge.
That's the gift that keeps on giving.
It sure does. So anyway, there we go.
Yeah. So, do you just want to kind of get into it?
Yeah, let's just get into it.
All right.
We always have people complaining about like our topics not getting to the title topic till later in the episode. So listen, this episode, we're getting straight into it. Okay. You guys can stop complaining. Yeah. What are we talking about?
Back away from the keyboard. So this week, based off based off our Discord hang after the episode, after we wrap our episodes, we usually hang with the people on Discord, and we talked about this. We are going to talk about our guitarist / musician pet peeves, because we all have them. And to be fair, anything we say, if you do this, we're not attacking you. It's just something that irks us. And that's okay. Everybody gets irked by something.
Yep.
And these just happen to be the things that irk Rhett and I.
Yeah. These are strictly our opinions. And, just know that these are not huge grievances. These are just little things that, like you said, irk us.
Yeah.
So with that said, let's wander into the swamp. All right. You want to go first?
Yeah, I think this one just runs all over me. And I don't know why. I hate it. I get visibly shaken when I see someone who doesn't clip the strings off of the tuners. They just wrap the string and then just put a big loop. Now, let me preface this by saying, if you're in the middle of a set and you break a string and you just have to wind one on, fine, cool. But if you're one of the people that pulls the guitar out of its case, or heaven forbid, a gig bag with the strings all spun around the tuners, I just want to take the guitar from you and clip them off and give it back to you, because it makes me so crazy.
Right. I'll go one further with that. I feel like there's an appropriate length to clip your strings. Okay. So I've seen, to me, what's even worse than the coiled ends, because the coiled ends are at least show that like okay, maybe you were in a situation where like you didn't have a set of clippers or something like that, and you just coiled them up, right? I could sort of grant forgiveness on that. What I've seen though is where people will clip the ends, but they'll clip the ends with like 4 inches of extra string on the end, and that is psychotic. I think that is like what is happening. I think there's an appropriate length of string clippage. There's a window, right? So personally, I like a flush clip. I like a nice, see if I can show it here. It's gonna be kind of hard sitting far away from the camera, but like you can see the headstock right here. It'll focus. There we go. So a nice flush clip right on the end of the tuning peg, right? Nice and clean. It also can help prevent like poking your finger with the end of the string, which is the worst thing ever.
Right.
But I understand some people don't. What's that? Oh,
well,
wait, you're right.
Say, on those style tuners.
Yeah, wait, you're right. Yeah. Here we go. All
Let's
right.
go down the hole.
Yeah, those are vintage style. I'm sorry. This though. So these are the original strings on this wide sky. So this is like the appropriate length. There's about maybe 1/4 of an inch on the end. I'm about to restring this, and when I restring it, I'm going to flush clip them. But I would say, yeah, maybe flush up to maybe 3/4 of an inch, I think is acceptable. Anything beyond that,
right?
And we're getting...
Yeah, it's usually... See, I like from working in the pedal world, I've just adopted millimeters because it makes more sense. So yeah, a couple mil is enough. But do you lock your strings when you wind them?
No.
Okay.
Because here's the thing.
I think...
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think you need a little bit. I would never clip a string right up to the post. Unless after it was wound, you could.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you always clip it after it's wound. But I usually leave a little bit just because, I don't know, just because.
Look at the GIF that just got posted in chat. That's great. So, all right. The way I always restring my guitars is, and I actually learned this from a Taylor Guitars video like 15 years ago. This was like one of the first videos they ever put out on the website or whatever. But it's what I learned, and I still do it today. I will draw the full string out through the bridge, and before I wrap it around the post, I pull it through the nut, and then I will judge. So like on a vintage tuner like this, see if I can get in position here. So let's say I'm trying to put the E string on, right? I will pull the E string through, and then I will go down 2 tuning pegs, and I will clip the string there at 2 tuning pegs. I like 3 wraps. With wound strings, I like 3 wraps per post, and with the non-wound strings, I go for 4 to 6 wraps on the post. And so doing that measurement using the tuning pegs as a measuring device is great, and that ends up giving me a nice, clean wrap.
Yeah, that is something that one of my friends at Carter, Adam, he showed me. He pulls to the next tuner, 2 tuners, and then pulls it down and then kinks it. And then what he does, and this is what I do now, is I actually give the first wrap with my hand. I wrap the first wrap over the top of the string, and then start to wind, and it stays taut and gives you an even dispersion of string on the tuning post. But yeah, I don't know why that drives me crazy. There's even photos of like Dwayne Allman he's Dwayne Allman. He could do whatever he wants, but I see that and I'm like, what are you, a psychotic? I don't know.
Psychotic. I don't know if that's the right term. Are you a
psychotic? I have a college degree. I spent $50,000.
Yeah. That's just clip your strings, y'all. And the string lock thing, I'm gonna go against something that's in one of my videos. Okay, if you watch the 10 guitar hacks video, which is like the second biggest video on my channel with Dave Honorato, Dave does the string lock thing, and I had never done it before, and Dave swears by it. But that was the first time he'd ever done it. And I was cool with it until I had to restring that guitar. And never again. Never will I do the string lock thing. The thing about that I personally believe is locking your strings on the tuning peg and using locking tuners don't help tuning stability. That doesn't help. It makes locking tuners make restringing faster, but that's not going to help your guitar stay in tune better.
Yeah. Strings stretch.
Right.
And that's why, so this is not necessarily another topic, and this is something that kind of annoys me. I wouldn't say it's a huge pet peeve, but I always get disappointed when I talk to people and they're like, man, I never change my strings. And I'm like, what? Why? And they're like, well, because they don't get gross. I'm like, do you feel the bottom of them and how they're divots above the frets? Have you ever done that? And they're like, so no. I'm like, yeah, that's not good for your frets, and like your strings will crap out. They don't need to be flat on the bottom. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I can totally see that with guitar strings. Bass strings, though, I think there is something to never changing your bass strings.
Right.
My P bass is a 2014. I've had it since 2015, and I've never put new strings on it. Never.
Right.
Because I like that thick, like greasy sort of tone you get, especially on a P bass, of having the, if in fact, if I do change, I'm probably going to switch to flats, because flats on a P bass, if it was good enough for James Jamerson, it's certainly good enough for me. So.
Hey.
Nice.
So what would be one of your pet peeves?
Always on compressors.
Ah.
Now, this is something that I used to do. I used to be one of these players that had a compressor on their board and always left it on, because I thought it helped my tone. I thought it made me sound better, and I would always compare. I'd like play something with the compressor on, and I'd turn it off, and I'd play something and be like, well, it just sounds better with the compressor. What I didn't realize was the compressor was boosting a little bit, and louder always sounds better. That's why when you're comparing stuff, if you're mixing, for example, and you're trying to compare like what an EQ is doing or what a compressor is doing, you always match your gain, because your ear is going to hear something is louder is always better. Okay.
Right.
The reason this irks me is because I, for a long time, was using it as a crutch. I was using it to cover up the fact that I didn't have good dynamic control of my guitar tone. I didn't have good control in my right hand of even, playing evenly across notes or digging in and backing off. I did not have good control over the dynamic response of what I was playing. And the compressor always being on just masked that, because it was doing its job. It was compressing. It was evening everything out. But when I figured out that you have more control over your tone without the compressor on, it completely changed my world. Now, I'm not anti-compressor. In fact, I'm doing a new pedal board build with Mason right now. I just shipped off a whole bunch of pedals and a board to him. And on the board is going to be the Compadre from Strymon, because I really like that compressor. They're great tools, and it's a great thing to use when you want that effect, when you want that sort of thing, but not always on. It doesn't need to be always on. I feel like if you are relying on your compressor, you're using it as a crutch oftentimes to cover up the fact that you might not have good dynamic control. It's something to work on.
100%. I feel the same way about compressors. I like, in a studio sense, or if you're using it like on the HX Stomp or the Helix, for example, I like to put a compressor after everything.
Yeah.
And it kind of evens everything out, but you still have all the dynamic control and the range and the ability to control the gain from not only your guitar volume, but your finger. But I came into compressors a lot later, because my guitar journey, and everyone kind of goes through this, where you have that aha moment where you realize, oh, this is what it's going to take for me to go to the next level as a guitar player. And for me, that moment happened when I bought a Dr. Z Maz 18 2x12, no reverb.
Yep.
It was so dry, so immediate, and it showed every flaw in my playing to me.
Yeah.
And after I got that amp, I was like, wow, I really need to practice. And so and this was a number of years ago, I just dove in, and like every day, every night I was practicing for at least an hour. And I went to compressors kind of after that. And I experienced that thing. I lost all the dynamic control. I lost all that effort I've been putting into my playing to be able to pick notes evenly and make everything as clear in the same level as I wanted to, and like add dynamics to my playing in a way that I hadn't done before, because everything had been through a not great amp,
right,
with tons of reverb. But for me, a compressor is for a guitar pedal that you put early in your chain. It's an effect.
Yeah.
You can use it for country playing. I think that makes sense because it's a sound. It's like if you're doing chicken picking, if you're doing that sort of thing, the sound of that style of music, I don't think it requires a compressor, but I think that gives you that, immediately puts you in that ballpark. And the same with some really like the Corey Wong style funk playing.
I was literally about to say I need to go back and clarify, because Corey Wong is a person that I believe runs a compressor always on, but does not fall under that category of using it as a crutch. Because for someone like Corey Wong or any of those Wolfpack guys, like so much of the Wolfpack sound, like the drum sound and everything, that sound is accomplished by them playing. Like if you watch any of those Wolfpack videos of like Jack Stratton or any of those guys playing drums, they're like barely touching the kit, but the drums sound massive because of the way they're recording it and using compression as an effect, as a way to augment and help create the sound. I think Corey Wong is a great example of that, right? You wouldn't have Corey Wong's sound without a compressor, right? Mm-hmm. He's definitely not using that as a crutch. What I'm talking about is what I used to do, and I see a lot of players still do, which is like, oh, I leave it on all the time because it just, I like the way it evens everything out. It makes everything smoother and sound better. It's like, yeah, or you could do the same thing with a little practice and tightening up your playing. And what that does for you then, without the compressor on, especially if you're running an amp that's on the edge of breakup, or you're using a pedal to boost the front end of the amp, you now have more control. You have more expressive control over your tone based on your how hard you're playing, your dynamics, which is huge.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from people not playing really loud. You know, I think if you're playing loud, putting a compressor on, it takes a lot away. Now, granted, there's a lot of people that do that, and that's a huge part of their sound. David Gilmour was pretty heavily compressed and stuff. But, you know, it's like Corey Wong, going back to him. Have you ever watched him play acoustic guitar?
No.
Oh, dude, he has like a whole, some acoustic, like
didn't he just put out an acoustic record actually?
Yeah,
okay.
But like that's just how he plays guitar. Like I've watched him on Instagram just playing an acoustic guitar, and even though like he's super compressed when he's playing, you know, his electrics, like that level of note separation and matching that dynamic range, that's inherent to his right hand. So he's definitely using it as an effect. Yeah. You know,
Corey Wong, one of the best guitar players, I think, alive today.
He's so nice too. I've talked to him a little bit, and he was just super sweet. So
I've not talked to him yet, but I will. All right. What's next for you? What's your next pet peeve?
Let's see. Let me go back to my list.
Okay.
Well, I want to save one of these for you, but kind of building off the first one, not cleaning your guitar. Now, I don't mean, I have a rule about my guitar stuff. I clean the fingerboard, I clean the back of the neck, I clean the frets. I try not to let anything tarnish for the most part, but the body, I just kind of let it do its thing.
Sure.
Because I don't sweat a lot. And even when I was in a touring band, like my sweat is not like gross. It's, you know, some people have their body chemistry is odd. I'm talking about people who never clean their guitar, and their guitar is a level of filth that just looks like it was abandoned.
Okay.
Example. I was in a band, an Americana, like Southern rock sort of band. And our bass player had this Squier bass that was like, had the wide range pickup and the Telly headstock. It was one of those like vintage modified, like Telly,
sure,
you know, basses. Maple fingerboard. it looked like it was rosewood because it had so much dirt on it, and he never cleaned it, and it made me sick. This is horrible for your frets. It's horrible for your instrument. And I've seen other people that do that, and that to me just boggles my mind, like why you wouldn't take care of something, you know?
Yeah. So I have a slight rebuttal to this. I am one of those people with crazy bad skin chemistry. I destroy guitar strings. All of the hardware on a guitar I've owned longer than 5 years, if it was chrome, it's tarnished. It's just inevitable. But to me, I don't like chrome, shiny anything. I don't like it on a car. I don't like it on a guitar. I don't like it on anything. So for me, like if it's chrome, I've done this with my Gibson, with my 335. Like it was just a standard Memphis 335, so it had all the chrome hardware on it. And I just let the bridge and the tailpiece completely tarnish because I wanted to get rid of that. But I do completely agree about the playing surface, about your like neck and your fingerboard. Yeah, especially on like a rosewood board, keep it oiled, keep it clean. On a maple fretboard, keep it wiped off. I mean, dude, it's so easy when you're restringing your guitar, just like wipe off the fretboard.
Right.
You know?
Well, granted, you know, he was a bass player, so he didn't change his string as much, but it was just like, it's so bad for your frets to let dirt and sweat get in there, and it can, you know, damage your instrument. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like I will usually wipe down a guitar with just like a microfiber cloth on the body without any sort of polish.
Yeah.
For the most part, I do clean the back of the neck on everything, and I'll use some sort of cleaner. But one thing, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this, for rosewood and ebony, any dark wood, any open, not sealed wood, because maple is usually sealed.
Right.
But rosewood and ebony in particular, I use this stuff, and we'll have to link it, called Fret Doctor. And it's made by this dude who makes fifes for Civil War reenactors.
Okay.
I don't know, but people figured out that this oil that he makes can coat a fingerboard, and lemon oil and a lot of stuff will clean, and it'll darken until it dries, and then it goes right back to how it was.
Right.
This stuff treats your rosewood and actually darkens it. I had a John Mayer Strat in like 2007 or something, really not soon after they came out, and the fingerboard on it was so pale.
Yeah.
I bought some of this Fret Doctor stuff. I started using it, and not only did it darken it, it made it smoother. And it's not oily or greasy. You just put it on. I put it on with a Q-tip and then wipe it with a paper towel. And it changes like the entire appearance of a guitar, and it keeps it clean, you know, which is important.
Yeah, I've always just used lemon oil. And for those who may not know, lemon oil is not actually lemon oil.
Right.
It's not like they're squeezing, you know, lemon zest or whatever to get. It's like mineral oil with essentially lemon scent, right? It's like pretty standard, just whatever. But yeah, I'll have to check that out. Dan just posted in the chat here. Fret Doctor, the one and only, endorsed by Shoyles Guitars.
This is not, well, this looks way fancier.
Ooh.
My bottle looks like he went to Rite Aid or Walgreens and bought just like a travel shampoo container and printed with an inkjet printer a label and stuck it on it. I've always bought it. His website is B.A. Pfeiffer.
Like with like PH or F?
No, like F-I-F-E-R. B.A. Pfeiffer.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's .net or .whatever, but it looks like a GeoCities site, and it looks super hinky,
dude. But
I've bought stuff from him for years, and he's great.
That's what you want, though. You know, with a product like this, I don't want some super polished website. Like, I want it to feel like I'm going to a guy, like I know a guy who knows a guy, And it's like just him in his basement, like with a cauldron and like a hot plate and one of those beakers with the thing spinning in the bottom, and he's like mixing stuff up per order. That's what I want, you know, with the sauce.
You want a Jesse Pinkman type guitar.
I want that special sauce, you know what I mean?
Oh man, bfpfeiffer.com. Yes, we'll have to screen grab this because it's fantastic. It looks older than Analog Man's website, which looks like it was built at the dawn of the internet.
I love that. Nice. All right, I'm going to buy some. I'm going to check it out. Yeah.
So what's your next peeve?
So we talked about this a little bit last week when we kind of came up with this. Honeyboo in the chat says this looks like a website for a JFK conspiracy.
It's legit. It totally does. But that is, yeah. It's great.
This is golden.
Trust me.
This is golden. All right. Well, my next pet peeve is wireless guitar systems. The vast majority, okay, I'm not going to say that because I don't know that. But in my experience, most of the players that I've personally seen who buy and set up and deal with wireless guitar rigs have no business using a wireless guitar rig. A wireless guitar rig, and for those of you maybe who don't know, it's essentially you have a transmitter pack that is mounted on your strap that your guitar plugs into, and then you have a receiver pack that is either, you know, back in a rack system attached to your rig off stage, or now they have pedal board units that go on your pedal board and everything. So essentially, it eliminates the cable between your guitar and your pedal board. Now, here's the thing. Unless you are playing on a big stage night after night, where your gig requires you to be running around stage, and maybe there's a big 300-foot ego ramp that you need to run out and hit your mark for like a big solo every night. Like, unless you're one of those guys, Rod Castro, for example, Kenny Greenberg, for example, you don't need a wireless rig, and you should avoid a wireless rig for a few reasons. One, 9 times out of 10, unless you are spending big money on the best wireless systems out there, which are thousands and thousands of dollars, a cable sounds better, right? You can't beat a cable. A $25 guitar cable is the benchmark. It is the level. And to get a wireless system that sounds as good as the cable that you're using, it costs hundreds or thousands of dollars just to get to that same level, okay? Second, you're adding another layer of complexity and another failure point, possible failure point to your rig that, again, most cases is unnecessary. If you are on a church gig and you are going to the same stage every week, once, twice, 3 times a week, your pedal board lives in the same spot that it always does every week, and you walk out, you play your 4 songs, your 3 songs, your 6 songs, whatever. You stand in front of your pedal board the whole time, and then you walk off stage. You don't need a wireless rig. If you're playing in a club, a small club, where the stage is so small that you physically can't move around, you don't need a wireless rig. So this came up for me after it was from me seeing, like, playing in mega church gigs that I used to do years and years ago, and seeing guys like get all caught up in like what wireless system they were going to use for their board. And I was like, why? And then I've gotten questions on Instagram or whatever about, hey man, you know, I'm looking to get a wireless rig set up. What do you recommend? And my answer is always the same. None. Unless you have a gig where part of the show is like moving and running around and hitting marks and doing all this kind of stuff, avoid it. You don't need it.
Yeah. Because isn't there, like, to be effective, you have to be further away from it. And like, is it like you need to be at least 15 feet away or so? Or that's what I used to hear. I don't know if that's true now.
There's ones from, like, okay, so I love Line 6. They're great, but they make this like G10 wireless system that is, it's like a prosumer kind of wireless thing. And to me, it's just like, it's completely unnecessary. Again, because for the people that need wireless rigs, they're going to go buy like the big bad stuff from Shure or Sennheiser or whatever. Like, because the other thing is, it's not just, there's a lot more complications than just like connecting your wireless system. You're dealing with RF, and you're dealing with RF interference. You're dealing with all kinds of different things that are adding just, in most cases, needless complexity to your system. Now, things like if you're on in-ears, having a wireless in-ear pack, totally understand that, right? But to me, that's a little bit different than, having a 25-foot cable or 12-foot cable in front of your pedal board that you're connected to. It irks me.
Yeah, there's this mentality that I've come to accept with everything guitar related is the more you add, the more you take away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true with amps. I think it's true with pedals, and it's definitely true with your setup. Anytime you add something to your guitar rig, you can potentially take something away. And I think a wireless system can do that, unless you're spending a large amount of money. But ultimately, you're right. If there's no reason to not be connected to your pedal board, then be connected to your pedal board. If you're that close, cables are cheap.
Yep.
And
reliable most times.
They're reliable. They don't in my lifetime, now I've been playing guitar 21 years. I think I have broken cables I've bought that I have broken 2 or 3 cables that just, maybe 4 that just crapped out from use. I mean, out of who knows how many cables I've bought, that's not that many to just up and die.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about batteries.
Nope.
You don't have to worry about charging anything.
Nope.
I don't know.
You don't have to worry about interference. The thing is, bring 2 or 3 cables to a gig. Always have an extra. When one goes down, because they do, cables fail. I've had dozens of cables go down on gigs and stuff before. You just grab another one, plug in, and keep going. It's a 30-second fix. Your wireless rig goes down, the battery dies, it loses connectivity, there's RF interference, there's all different types of things that can start to go wrong that are just, again, in most cases, it's not needed. Save your money. Go spend that money on something else. Go buy another pedal. Go buy another guitar. Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. That takes me to my next topic.
Yep.
Building off what you just said, not being prepared for your gig or whatever. Either not knowing what you have to play, which is paramount, but not having the proper equipment to do a job.
Yeah.
Whenever I used to gig, I would take double the cables I needed, backup power supplies, extra strings, extra picks, all my tools. And this could just be for like a long weekend gig, going just to a couple states or something, but have an extra IEC cord, have everything, because inevitably, even if your stuff doesn't fail, the other idiots in your band are going to forget or break something, and you're going to have to be the guy that saves the day.
Right.
And that has always driven me crazy. That the same bass player who didn't clean his bass, one time we were going to either Huntsville or Atlanta or somewhere to play like a weekend of gigs. We were on the road for multiple hours, and he was like, "Oh, I forgot my bass." I wanted to leave him on the side of the road.
Okay.
And the crazy part is he didn't even have to bring a bass or a bass amp, because every place we were playing had a house like bass amp.
So dude just like showed up with his clothes, basically.
Yeah, he had his like backpack with his clothes, and he probably didn't even have a toothbrush because he was one of those kind of people.
Oh, man.
And no bass. And he was the bass player.
Oh boy. That's astonishing. I love that. Yeah, Milton in the chat. Dudes who show up unprepared, bane of an MD's existence. Yeah. I'm going to follow up on that pet peeve a little bit later, because I have one similar to that. That was also a bass player, actually. So my what?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, my next one, not to continue to harp on the cable thing here, but solderless patch cables.
Ooh.
I hate them.
Hot topic.
I hate them, not because of them themselves. It's the sort of just blind rage and support that people give for solderless patch cables. I've been on the receiving end of so many just shitty comments from people when I've said this stuff in the past. I'm sure there's gonna be people here that say the same thing, like, "Well, it's, solderless cables have gotten so good." And the evidence cable, yeah, I know about evidence. Well, these cables they lock in. I know about the locking cables. Soldered cables, soldered patch cables are always better. 100% of the time, they are always better for a few reasons. One, oftentimes they're more economical. They're cheaper than the solderless equivalent. If you had to build 12 patch cables, you could go on Amazon and buy a pack of right angle plugs for 1/4-inch plugs. They're super easy to solder, relatively low profile for, I don't know, $15, something like that.
I'm gonna look right now.
And you can get Mogami 2319 cable in bulk by the foot. You could build your own patch kit. If you know basic soldering technique, you could build your own patch cable kit for, I'm going to guess, $20 to $25, maybe $30 to get an equivalent patch cable kit from something like Evidence Audio, which again, I don't mean to bash Evidence. I know their cables are really nice. I know that they are the most reliable solderless cables in the game. Totally understand. But you're not going to have, it's going to be way more expensive, first of all. Second of all, a mechanical soldered connection, if you've soldered it properly, and especially if you've like heat shrunk the connection, heat shrunk the connection, you've done all the things, that is going to be a reliable connection, especially if you get a plug and a cable in that has mechanical strain relief with the soldering. You've used good solder, you've done good soldering technique, which is not hard to learn. You're going to have a much more reliable cable than any solderless cable out there. Again, I know there are people, Dan from That Pedal Show, uses solderless cables on all of his rig builds. That's great. And I know that it works well for people like Joey Landreth and Josh Smith, right? For me, always soldered cables, always soldered patch cables. And that comes again from years of experience. I've had plenty of different solderless cable kits. I've had the D'Addario ones. I've had the George L ones. I've had there was another company I had years ago that, the lava cable. I've had like three of the different lava cable ones. They're, at least those lava cable ones, were a pain in the ass to put together. Your fingers are just completely raw and torn up by the time those were done. I understand the Evidence ones are like way easier to put together and stuff. But every single solderless patch cable kit I ever had, no matter the brand, no matter its construction, no matter how well I put it together, following the directions to a T, they always failed. I always had patch cables fail on gigs, on stage, in the middle of a set, having to find like where the bad patch cable was and all that kind of stuff. That problem stopped when I went to soldered patch cables.
Right.
It just did.
I will say though that a soldered cable is only good as you can make it. So like making your own is absolutely what everyone should learn to do. You should learn to make a cable.
It's not hard.
Not hard. Each end has two connections. Yeah. But if you are really bad at soldering, you can very quickly, despite your best efforts, ruin many feet of guitar cable by not soldering it properly. Mason from Vertex has a lot of great videos on how to solder stuff. It doesn't take a lot of tools. It just takes a lot of practice. And it's definitely a measure twice, cut once sort of situation that you really just need to plan out how you're going to do something before you attack it, because there's nothing worse in the world than trying to make a guitar cable and realize you left the sleeve off of the cable.
Yep.
You have to desolder the end to put the sleeve back on it. But I agree. I've used solderless cables in the past mainly because that's what was trendy. That's what everyone said. You know, like you should get George L's. Every George L cable I've ever used that I made myself broke.
Yep.
I've used some of the Evidence ones. They broke.
Yeah.
It's different when you're making a pedal board. You make every cable, you test every cable, you put it in, and then nothing moves. Even then, things can fail.
Yeah.
They definitely can. But the vast majority of us who experiment at all just get comfortable soldering cables.
Yeah,
and it's a skill set you should just know how to do.
Yeah, and again too, like I understand the appeal of solderless cables for someone who's like primarily a home player. Their board never leaves the room or whatever, or their basement or wherever they're playing. Totally fine. If you have the coin and like want to drop it on that stuff, by all means. Again, this is just my opinion here, okay? But if you're gigging, if you're traveling, if you need your rig to be reliable, if you need your pedal board to perform and not leave you high and dry, in my opinion, you need to be using soldered cables. That's just what I think. I would love to have this conversation with Dan from that pedal show and hear his perspective on it. Because again, I think what he does is great. I think he's very knowledgeable. I think he knows what he's talking about. And so I'm interested to hear his perspective on it. But yeah, even if he was building me a rig, I would humbly request that he build it with solderless cable or soldered cables.
Right.
And soldering is one of those skills that I think you should, as a guitar player, you should know, because like going back to the big cable thing, if you have a normal quarter-inch instrument cable and it goes down, you can repair it. You can repair XLR cables. You can make MIDI cables. You can make patch cables. You can do all kinds of stuff if you just have some basic soldering skills.
Right.
Also, don't any of the UK audience, don't tell us that we say solder wrong, okay? You guys drive on the wrong side of the road.
Solder.
So don't at us in the comments.
It's funny. I have adopted, not all the time, but sometimes I'll say solder.
Solder?
Just solder, because that's, I watch a lot of UK YouTube. In Dan's defense of solderless cables, he's a professional making them.
Right.
And most of us who make our own cables, I would even argue that I am not a professional at making cables. I'd say I'm a professional at soldering, but when it comes to making cables, trust me, I've tried to make it where two right angles were like perfectly parallel with each other, and they're like this. And you're like, why? I know I made this right. Why are they like that?
Yeah. Well, that's why the 2319 cable, the Mogami 2319, I picked this up from Mason when he built my board a couple years ago. It's all wired with 2319. And that cable is really cheap. It sounds good, and it's super flexible. Like, it's real easy to get. So if you do end up making it so it's a little wonky with the two right angle plugs, you can just it'll twist right into position. Not all patch cable material is like that. The cable that I got from the Lava Cable kits a couple years ago was like super stiff, and it was, it was reliable, but because I ended up using that cable because I bought one of their soldered patch cable kits, and that was great. But the cable itself was like real stiff, so you had to make sure that the plugs were lined up properly. Yeah.
I still have many Lava soldered kits or cables that I made from kits and stuff. And I think the last thing that we could touch on about the solderless cable argument, the reason it was so appealing, I think, a number of years ago is because it was the only way to get a really small cable.
You're right.
And now there's a multitude of options when it comes to having a very small plug for your pedal board.
I think
square plugs are great, and there's all sorts of stuff that's even smaller.
I think BTPA is the company now, I think, that has the best square, like low profile plugs. That's what we're going to be using for my new board. I'm going to buy them all from BTP. I think I'm going to buy the cable from BTPA as well. SP400s. Yeah, those are great.
That's a square plug. Yeah.
This stuff matters, y'all. It really, really matters.
It does. Square plug are probably the easiest to solder pancake plugs I've ever made.
Yeah. I've had the Switchcraft. I have a lot of the Switchcraft 226s, I think they're called. And those were relatively easy, but they're actually not that low profile. There's better options out there now. So yeah.
Well,
I could spend an entire hour talking about cables.
And again, this is just our opinion.
Yeah.
So, I think the one last thing that is a real pet peeve of mine, and I'm sure it is of yours, is not knowing your gig. When you show up and there's another guitarist or, drummer, bassist, doesn't matter, and they have the wrong equipment, the wrong vibe, the wrong volume. Those things are so paramount, not only for you as a musician to have a good time but for everyone that's listening to you to enjoy themselves, because ultimately, if you're getting paid to play, the audience needs to have fun. And if you can't provide that because somebody brought a 100-watt amp to a bar gig or whatever, you need to reassess what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever had a situation where someone...
So that kind of lines up with my last pet peeve as well. It's a little bit different though, in that like being prepared for the situation.
Right.
Part of that, to what you're speaking about, is understanding the gig. So as a guitar player, because obviously most of our audience are guitar players or bass players too, understanding the tone and the sound that you're going for. If you're being hired for a gig, let's say you're being hired for a wedding gig and you learn, let's say 40 songs, you need to have a rig and you need to have a setup that's going to let you cover everything from Alan Jackson to Daft Punk, Nile Rodgers stuff all in a night, right? You need to be able to pull off all those tones and know how to pull off all those tones well enough to play the gig. It's part of being a musician. The other side of it that I've seen, luckily very rarely, I have to say, in my 10 years of playing, the overwhelming majority of people that I've worked with and played with have been just total professionals. Even at a level where you're barely making money and like kind of grinding it out, most people that I've been able to work with take their gig really seriously. They come prepared. They learn the stuff. But there's one example of a guy that I played with probably 4 years ago in Nashville. This band I was touring with at the time, we had gotten hired to go play a gig. I'm not going to give too many details, but it was kind of a last minute gig, and our normal bass player, who was incredible, one of my favorite bass players ever, wasn't available. So they found a fill-in. The guy had 2 weeks to learn a 45-minute set, which is not that hard. The music was not super difficult. It had a lot of details and stuff, but it wasn't hard. As soon as he accepted the gig, they had passed along the recordings. I recorded every rehearsal that we did. I tended to record most shows to keep up with our arrangements and stuff. I sent him all the recording material. Show up to Nashville. I drove up to Nashville early for rehearsal. Get there, we're loading in. Dude shows up 20 minutes late. The bass player shows up 20 minutes late. Takes his time setting up his rig. And then we finally get ready for downbeat. 30 minutes after we were supposed to hit downbeat for rehearsal, we sit down to the first song. We're like, all right, man, you ready to go? Here we go. We're gonna click it off. He's like, oh wait, what song is this? I'm like, oh, it's this song. Cool. Yeah, I didn't get this one. I didn't. Could you just like show me the chords real quick? Like, what do you mean you didn't? Did you not get the files or whatever? It's like, no, I did. I just didn't have. I didn't get it. So what are we playing? For every song in the set, he had not looked at the stuff. He had not listened to the tracks. He had not looked at the charts. And we had to spend the entire rehearsal walking him through stuff. And the worst part about it was like, he was totally just laissez-faire, kind of shameless about the whole thing. Like, yeah, man, it's cool. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a great time. We get to the gig. The gig was terrible. It was awful.
Right.
One of the worst gigs I played with that band, because he didn't know what he was doing and he was all over the place. And
right,
the whole time he was just oblivious to the fact that he was like blowing this gig. And we finished up and, you know, get back to Nashville. And he's like, yeah, man, that was awesome. Can't wait to play with you guys again. It's like, bro, that ain't happening again. Like, no. So, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. My childhood best friend, he plays bass. And he, like, when he was like woodshedding, you know, when we were teenagers, he just learned like chord progressions and like how to listen. And every gig I've ever had with him, his name's Ben, if he ever just had to fill in for whatever reason, for like wedding gigs I'd played, and like, hey, we need a bass player, he would just show up and he'd be like, okay, what key is it? And I'd be like, oh, it's in B flat or whatever. And he'd be like, all right. He's like, I'll listen. And he'd just make it work, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but dude, that is one of the worst feelings when people aren't prepared. The not like, like what was my thought? Not knowing your gig. One of my, it wasn't the worst gig I've ever played, but I played a barn wedding gig, and the other guitar player, I took my Maz 18, or I might have taken a Carmen Gia, like a 1x12.
Right.
Like, fine, we're playing in a barn.
Right.
Like, a nice barn, but a barn.
It's a barn.
Yeah. And the other guitarist brought a 100-watt 2-rock classic reverb with a 2x12 cap.
Cool.
Yeah. That was his amp. Like, that was the only amp he had. It's
okay.
Like, he spent all his money on that one amp. Like, cool. I get it. But Ben, again, he was at this gig with me. It was, me, drums, other guitar player, Ben. And Ben and his bass rig was like on the other side of this 2-rock. And when we started playing, all of us were like, holy shit, like, this guy's so loud.
Yeah.
And Ben had to walk. He had a really long cable, and he walked over to me, and he's like, he was playing. He's like, I can't hear you at all. He's like, I can barely hear the drums. And he was just like in the middle of a set, like talking in my ear. And so he had to stand by me just so he could hear the guitar to be able to get through this gig, which was like a wedding gig. It was hours,
right,
that we were going to play. Oh,
I will claim I have been, I've been the guy on more than one occasion that has been playing too loud for the room. And
me too.
I've been the guy that gets asked multiple times in a night to turn down. I understand it. It's never fun being asked to turn down by your bandmates. Although I will say, to my some of my closest and dearest friends, Good Trouble. That's probably the band that asked me to Noah always asked me to turn down. It's like a thing. And it's gotten better since we switched to in-ears, which has been great. But in recent years, I have been asked to turn down, and Ian, who I love, is one of the most heavy-handed drummers ever, especially his rim shots. They're like shotgun blasts. I mean, we've had times in soundcheck where Ian hits a rim shot unexpectedly, and it makes you jump out of your skin because it's so loud. It freaks you out.
Right.
And so it's like, well, wait, why am I being asked to turn down when, like, now I have to turn my amp back up just to get over the snare and cymbals? So, again, I love those guys, but it is like, that is another kind of pet peeve for me, is like being asked to turn down when you're not the loudest instrument on stage, like not even close.
Right. Yeah.
And we've all know that feeling as guitar players where you've turned your amp literally all the way down to where it's on the edge, where if you crank that volume knob down at all, it's just, it's gonna cut off essentially.
Right.
And then being asked, yeah, it's still a little loud, man. Can you turn that down? It's like, man, I'm playing a 15-watt Tweed Deluxe and it's basically off. It can't get any quieter than this.
Oh, God.
So my move is I just walk over to the amp and touch the knob and be like, oh, there you go. Is that better? And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Thanks, man. It's great.
It's just like, just unscrew the set screw.
Yeah,
so the knob just spins freely. At this last NAMM, Joey Landreth and I were at the Nova booth, and I think he was like playing a Solderless, or he might've been playing the Revolta baritone. And the NAMM police came by, and he had his little decibel meter. Now, the ambient volume in NAMM has got to be at least 100 decibels.
Yeah.
But we were playing through the little Josh Smith Morgan amp that they had lent the Novo guys. And the NAMM police guy was like pointing at the amp, and he was like, turn it down. I was like, okay. So I turned it down, and he kept doing that. And I turned it off. I was like, it's
off.
Like, it's off. And he was like, he did that and walked away. I was like, you kidding me?
Man, the NAMM police, that's what a gig.
What a job. I don't envy them.
No, I don't either.
I've never had any bad interactions with him. That was annoying, but he wasn't mean. He wasn't like, we're going to shut you down. He was just like, turn it down. And usually if you're just cool with them and courteous and talk to them like people, and don't be an asshole. Just
this quick, like, give him one of those, like, okay, got it, man, thanks. And as soon as they walk away, just right back up.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That's some of our peeves. That was a whole episode, one topic.
Yep. A whole episode. Wow. Look at us.
Dipped in peeve.
So shill of the week.
Yeah.
What are we shilling this week there, Zachary?
Why don't you go first?
All right. So my shill this week is one I'm actually really excited about. It's been a while since I bought a new microphone. I love microphones. They're like, I don't know what it is about them, but I really love mics. They're really cool. So as I was saying, for this new project I was working on for the video course and for future video production, I needed a shotgun microphone. Now, if you're not familiar, a shotgun microphone is a style of microphone that is designed to be hyper focused in its response. They're very, very popular with film and TV. You know, you see the guys, the boom ops that are holding the mic, the big long stick, the microphone on the end of it. So one of my best friends, Philip Conrad, bass player extraordinaire from the Backstage Live band. Almost dropped the band's name on accident just there, but not yet. That's what he does now for his day gig. Phil is a boom op on a lot of like big film and TV productions here in Atlanta. So I talked to him and he recommended this mic for me. It's the Sennheiser MKH416. I can't show it because it's in position right now and I'm not going to move it, but I have a picture, which we can see here. So this is the Sennheiser MKH416. I bought it this week. So this is in like the shotgun and film and TV world. It's kind of like the 58 or the 57, right? It's like one of the industry standard mics. This is the mic they boomed Empire Strikes Back with. Been in production for like, I don't know, 40 something years or something like that. But when I got it and set it up, I had Phil kind of walk me through. There's a whole technique, dude, to boom opping and like getting shotgun mics placed. It's fascinating. I think it's fascinating. But I got it placed and I was talking and I listened back. And right now the microphone, it's out of frame here, but it's probably about 17, 18 inches away from my face. And when I'm speaking, it sounds like this. Like I am right on axis, close mic'd with a mic like the SM7. It is so crispy. It is so clear. It does a really good job of rejecting sound from the sides. The best way you can think about a shotgun mic is, you remember the old mag lights from the day?
Yeah.
Like you'd put 12 D-cell batteries in them. You could like beat the shit out of somebody with it if you need to. And you remember how you could twist the front and make that beam of light like go real tight like that. That's essentially what the pickup pattern, the polar pattern of a shotgun mic does. It's like you can just hone that beam in real tight. So
right.
Yeah, that's my Brett Shill presents Dipped in Boom. Yeah, so that's my shill of the week, my new shotgun mic that I'm real excited about.
Nice. That's exciting.
Yeah, I love it.
I love new technology. Speaking of old technology, which is not what we were speaking of.
Well, shotgun mics are old tech. They're not new.
Yeah. One of my favorite Star Wars quotes from behind the scenes it's from A New Hope, and Mark Hamill, they like do a take and he hears someone off, some person working on the set say the mic was in picture, and he turns to Carrie and Harrison, and they're like, the mic was in picture. The mic was in picture. And they had to like reset, and they were like walking back to their mark going, the mic was in picture. The mic was in picture. I don't know. It's one of my favorite behind the scenes Star Wars
talking
things.
to Phil about that job now, like I never really had a full respect for boom ops, but they have one of the most difficult jobs on set because they have to single-handedly get the mic as close to the source, as close to the actor as possible on axis in a scene where you might be moving around, doing all kinds of stuff while keeping the mic completely out of frame. So they have to know exactly what camera op is doing, and they have to know what the actors are doing to try and capture this performance. It's like, it's crazy, man. It is crazy.
Right. Yeah. Physically demanding too.
Yeah.
But anyway, my gear shill of the week is Lux Bumblebee Capacitors.
Ooh.
So if you've never seen these are the most boutique tone caps you can get for your guitar. They make not just bumblebees, they make gray tigers, they make a replica of old Fender caps. So what they do, Gibson, back in the day when they were doing their Bumblebee caps, were just a little ceramic cap in a plastic case with paint striped on the outside, was not a real true Bumblebee. But Lux actually has a Sprague capacitor winding machine, which capacitors, a paper and oil capacitor, if you don't know, is foil and paper that's rolled around and it's injected with an oil and then encased in a thing,
right?
And either dipped in wax or plastic, and you have a cap. But they're packaging, so it has this band on the outside. Every package for the caps comes in a case that would be close to what the guitar that would have these caps would have. So
wow,
this would be in a burst. So it has a burst colored cardboard case.
Dude.
And the bag they come in is pink, like the lining of a Gibson case from the 50s. It has all sorts of postcards and even fake not fake, but a hang tag like you would have found on a vintage guitar. But these caps are just the most
wow.
The
Look
most
at that.
fantastic paper and oil capacitors that you can buy. They're not cheap, but tone caps do matter. They don't matter when your tone knob is on 10, but the moment you start to use your tone knob, they totally matter. And just for another level of nerd, here is another one that I'm going to put in my, might put it in my PRS. Let's see if I can. This is called a Gray Tiger. And this is what would have been in a Les Paul from like 52 to about 57 or so.
Damn.
But these paper and oil caps just have that woolly sound that you totally expect. These Bumblebees are actually the woman set, which what that means is the neck. You can see that these are different. They have different color bands. The bottom one's a little different.
Right.
That's the neck cap, which actually has less capacitance, so you don't roll off as much bass. So you kind of balance out the amount of reduction you can get on your bridge and your neck pickup.
Well, we all know how much you love a good unboxing experience, and that is possibly one of the best unboxing experiences I've seen thus far.
Dude, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with those. I bought these for something else that's not going to happen. But I'm just going to keep them because inevitably I'll get another 2 humbucker guitar.
Right.
And I'll put them in that.
What, how much were they?
I think let me just double check real quick.
Okay. Yeah. Because I might want to throw them in my Les Paul.
Oh yeah. Well, I thought about that.
Oh,
but I mean, I'll sell them to you. I'm not just going to give them to you.
I'm not going to give them to you. Chad, I think this is some kind of charity.
Oh, okay.
Tone charity?
With the box and the diagrams and all the hang tags, they're $70. The caps. Just the caps is $61. There's $69 for the box and diagrams and caps, and just the caps is $61. So they ain't cheap.
No, they're not cheap.
But, if you're going that extra mile, and that's what comes in all the new custom shops now. That's what they're using.
Oh, they are using
using Lux caps, which is
caps.
Quite the upgrade.
So you're saying that like the USA stuff they're doing now, because they say they've got the Bumblebee caps, but that's not like a real Bumblebee.
The USA doesn't have Bumblebee caps.
I think it does. The new ones don't they?
No.
Don't they?
I know the custom shop.
They went to like 50s wiring.
Caps.
I don't know. They're using
yeah, they're using 50s wiring. Let me just look here. But I feel like
I feel like I'm right about this.
They're using orange drop caps.
Oh, god damn it. Never mind. I wasn't right.
I feel like you're right. But guess what?
Guess what? I was wrong.
So the orange drop is a total different thing. I'm not a huge fan of those as a tone cap. They're not bad, but I just prefer paper and oil. So anyway,
this is the most bougie, like just hipster conversation ever. I'm not a huge fan of the orange drop.
Well, I mean, like,
I
people
agree.
get on their soapbox about pickups and stuff. Why can't caps be part of the conversation?
They should be part of this
your guitar
conversation.
sounds.
No, you're right. Hey, don't get defensive. You're right. I'm just saying.
I'm not bougie.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Look, I spent 20 minutes talking about soldered cables, okay? It's not like I'm, in any position to judge on this. I'm just saying, I like that. I'm just saying is a way to just kind of cover up something like stupid or bad. Oh, hey, man, I'm just saying. Hey, man, I'm just saying. You can't be
Snakes are
mad.
better than lizards, man. I'm just saying.
Just saying, man. Hey, just saying,
Anyway.
All right. Well, yeah, I posted a picture of my new microphone in the chat here for all to see. I'm excited to. Apparently makes a great voiceover mic too. It's like what a lot of people use for voiceovers and Foley sound.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was going back to last week, how we were talking about our game show. Before we do anything, you've got to get one of those Bob Barker mics with the long.
My friend Michael Westbrook has so apparently they made different versions of that mic, and he bought one as like a guitar. Apparently they're cool on guitar caps. His is short. His is like this long, but it is the Bob Barker mic just in a short version. And I really, really want one. I think it would be hysterical to like mic a cab with the Bob Barker.
Yeah.
Price is Right mic. I forget what they're called, but yeah, they were like a really popular mic for a long time.
That's funny.
Yeah.
The chat is getting unruly. So
yeah, we're gonna.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Down. Well, yeah, like I said, you can. What do we have to plug? I never remember what to plug here at the end of the episodes.
Be sure to like and subscribe and share this video or the audio podcast with your friends.
There it is.
Visit us on Patreon and check out our $2 tier of support to help pay for our brand new editor.
Yeah. Oh, we should plug our editor, Milton.
Yeah.
Milton Torres. He runs a studio service now. So if you are looking for editing or mixing of your own, you can get in touch with Milton. He's great. I think it's Blue Feather Recording, right, Milton? In the chat? Yeah, Blue Feather Recording. He's got a website. We'll post it in the description and the doobly-doo down below. He's great. He's a good friend of mine. I've known him for years. He used to MD gigs that I played on. He's a hell of a musician and now a hell of a mix engineer. So if you've noticed, starting last week and this week, a step up in our audio quality, that's because of the one and only Milton from Blue Feather Recording. So
yeah, Zach's not doing it anymore.
Hey, listen, Zach did a stellar job for working as hard as you did. I don't know why I'm talking about you in the third person. You did a stellar job for having limited experience of mixing and editing and everything, and for doing it with as busy as you are. So congratulations. A round of applause is deserved for Zachary.
All right.
But now we're paying somebody else.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. See y'all next week.